I know what you're thinking. Here we are with another Home Arcade is Dead video. Arcade1Up is dead. Well, they really did die, but that's a different question. And no, we're not here to dwell on the negativity. Today, I wanted to talk about what I'm feeling. And I thought, well, if I'm feeling this way, I bet a lot of other people are feeling the same way. And so I thought it would be a good idea to talk about it. In fact, I got to give a big shout out to Stupid Fat Hobbit because he really captured exactly kind of how I'm feeling right now. He says, me, home arcade is dying. Everyone needs to move on. Other me, cab release, one new cab releases. We are so back, baby. And I am really kind of in this funk when it comes to home arcade. It's not that I've lost interest. I love it. I still play all these games. I just am disillusioned with these companies, right? We had the opportunity and to talk a few weeks ago after it was kind of leaked that Arcade1Up was closing. And ultimately, obviously, that they sold some of their assets, including the brand name, to Basic Fun. But we did a retrospective about the good old days, the 2019 through 2022, where every time you turned around, whether it was CES or Toy Fair or E3 or you know, IGN or these other things, like every time you turned around, new cabs were being released, exciting titles were dropping, sales were happening all over, and people were fired up, and it was exciting. And we all picked up our first one, and we all remember that first cab. And before we knew it, we had 2 and 3 and then 14, and some people had 30, and some bought every cab and rotated them out constantly. It just became a wild and crazy addiction. And just as when everybody was having the most fun, then came 2023. And since 2023, we've been living in an era of disappointment. So that is kind of what we're talking about tonight. Not the disappointment, but looking ahead and saying, is there any chance that we're going to come out of that? So let's take a quick hello and say hi to everybody in chat. Of course, we said hello to Stupid Fat Hobbit. We have Sergeant Giratina here. We have John Fritz, the Cornercade, of course, the moderator of all moderators, Jason Little Alien. JJ is here. He says it's going to take correct move. It's going to take correct moves by Basic Fun and maybe Iconic to bring the hype back. My Arcade is making half measures to put out decent products, but they are falling short. New Wave Toys and one-quarter arcades can't do it. Josh Deeney says, man, I like the idea of quarter arcades, but I'm not a fan. Mad Gear says, Toy Fair is the scene's only hope for survival at this point. We have, of course, Thumper Squid. Mentioned Josh Dindy already. And we mentioned Cornercade. And Ritual Dello is here. B. Kirby is in the house. Thanks for dropping by. Unchained 81 is here. Dane Bramage, Surf Sega. Zero Redux. Let's see. The Real Zim. Get over here. Israel Gaming. Hello. And then let's see. Jim the Pacers fan. Video Game Vegas. Who else is lurking in here? Gamer Fridge says Detroit pizza is the best. You are drunk? You are drunk. Stock Jock is here. Darren Kane is here. Says he left in May 2022. For those of you who don't know Darren Kane, former Arcade1Up employee, says having seen the trajectory well and also other factors as is common when anyone leaves the company. February? I don't drink. You just like bad pizza. You are correct. You do like bad pizza if Detroit sells your pizza, because that's really just a breadstick with the sauce on the top instead of dipping it. Real pizza comes from Chicago. Um, anyways, so, so we, yeah, I love this. CES, of course, came and went, and nothing. It was crickets. We'll probably see stuff at Toy Fair because let's face it, there's only a few companies left. But as we look back on the last 4 years, 2023 was the year of the deluxe, but it was just a bunch of re-releases. And maybe you picked one up, maybe you didn't. Um, I think that year the only ones I picked up were Pac-Man XL, which was fantastic. But then they never really did another good XL after that. And then I picked up, I think, Golden Tee, right? Which, if you recall, the naysayers said those Golden Tees were the worst versions of Golden Tee, that you really want Golden Tee 4 and newer. Well, that is until, you know, one of their buddies started selling the same Golden Tees. Then it was the great Golden Tees. So there you go. But that game was, I'm not in disagreement with the fact that the good Golden Tees are Golden Tee 4. The Golden Tees that are on the Golden Tee Deluxe and the Golden Tee XLs, they're good. They're adequate golf games for the arcade. They're not as good as the improvements and things that were made when you got to Golden Tee 4. But that's besides the point. For me, that year was very just blah. They came out with Time Crisis that year, I think, but ultimately it was very expensive at $750. And it really was a year after when I bought that, when I basically got it for rewards and ended up getting it for free when it was on sale, combined with the rewards I had at Amazon. So I paid for it, but I paid for it in rewards. Never got an Arcade1Up for free. That would be nice, but that's besides the point. So it was really kind of just like, it was an okay year, but it wasn't exciting. There wasn't any like real buzz going on. There was a lot of hope. We were all kind of like, what are they going to do? What's going to come out next? And just nothing really came out, just a bunch of re-releases. And then followed by 2024 now, right? When again, not only does nothing really come out, they go the wrong direction with these weird slim products. And then, of course, 2025, they just do nothing. A couple more re-releases in slim version, but nothing happens. But 2025 was supposed to be the year that saved us. It was supposed to be the year that home arcade is back, baby, as somebody says. But nothing was back, was it? We started at CES, spent thousands of dollars to go fly to CES, stay there, go around so I could see this iconic arcade in person, so that I could get my hands on it. Super excited for it. That was over a year ago, and it's still not out. And, it was just frustrating. So as the delays for iconic arcades started mounting, and the crickets started chirping. Well, it was Basic Fun, right? Basic Fun. News leaks out of Toy Fair that Basic Fun is going to do all this great stuff. And boom, they announced WrestleFest. Hype is high. It's like, we knew it. Basic Fun is going to come and going to really compete. And here we go. We got competition for Arcade1Up. It's going to force Arcade1Up to do more. That never came to fruition. Then the Basic Fun shipped. And a big shout out to Big Kirby with the big $20 super chat. He says, unfortunately, you can't relive an anomaly in time. I think the FOMO is gone for most people. People will randomly buy something they really like. Most people I know are slimming down their arcade collections and not adding. And that is kind of what I wanted to talk a little bit about today on that. So really appreciate the big super chat there, Big Kirby. And we're almost to a great segue, so hold on to that thought. So Basic Fun comes out, and you guys know WrestleFest. We all knew slightly ahead of time that it was going to be missing characters. For me, not being a huge wrestling fan and not having a deep love of that game. It wasn't a huge deal because the gameplay was the same, but I know for wrestling fans and lovers of that game, it was a huge deal. But when the cab came out, the colors were muted on the sides. It didn't have that pop. The blacks were more gray, and it was nowhere more noticeable than on the control panel, which was this lightish mid-tone gray that just did not match the photos, all the shots that we saw of the prototypes and pre-production products. But the monitor was good. The cab played good. Marquee so-so. It was mid-tier, but the missteps on the miscoloration and the muted colors, not having the features we had been used to, like online, even for just high scores, or no coin door, or no grill covers, like for that price, because they launched at $5.99, 20% higher than what we all thought they would be at $4.99. That's a significant jump in cost, but we do know there were other factors going on, so it's not solely their problem, right? But all of those things came to like a head, right? Like, so it was like all this perfect storm in 2025, whether it's those cease and desists, or tariffs, or God knows what else, right? We had some missteps. And then, of course, you get to the end of 2025 and Arcade1Up is officially done. They're shutting down. And so I'm left here thinking like, man, like for me, I was early pre-order. As soon as I could pre-order the Iconic, I put my pre-order in. Like I said, I saw the prototype in person. I was all in on this thing, super excited. Then the delays started, and I can understand the first delay. Then another delay came, and yet we're not hearing anything. And then we had another delay, and it's like, okay. And so now I'm getting like, hey, it's been 3/4 of the year, and I told you guys, I have that video out there where I was getting real antsy about the prototype. So then the fourth delay comes around, and that was it for me. Like I just had to get out of it. Like I'd rather have my money, put it towards something else. So I canceled my pre-order, and so I'm disillusioned with the quality of Basic Fun because it wasn't just WrestleFest, right? They dropped Centipede, and while Centipede looks pretty good, it's not as good as it should be, but it's pretty good. It comes loaded with games, lots of arcade games. The problem, they gave it a bad monitor, a not so great monitor, and many of the extra bonus arcade games on there, you can't even play because they didn't map the controllers right or at all in some cases. So it was like, well, you've got a bunch of extra games, like how many of them can you actually play? So that was another misstep. Again, can forgive it because there have other things. And I know people have issues with, hey, the lead title is a 3x4 vertical, not 4x3 wide, and you put it in this, but I can still forgive that somewhat. Something we're all used to with Arcade1Up. But then comes Return of the Jedi, right? And you guys know I'm not a fan of the way Return of the Jedi looks. I love the game. I love the original cabinet. I think it looks goofy. It looks like a giant crown or something, like a Crayola. The marquee is beautiful. And then, you know, Michael B gets it, other people get it, and it turns out like the control panel is like at your knees. So it's like super low, awkward next to all your other 3/4 scale cabinets. So you need to get some sort of booster to get it up at a normal height. The monitor is bad. The graphics on the vector graphics are not sharp. It has issues. So they release a firmware update. And then yesterday, right, it's posted to Facebook that all kinds of people are having issues with this firmware, that after the firmware update, the games are crashing on them all the time. So imagine like you spend $599, $600 on this thing, and the games don't even run right. And not only does it have the other things, so again, more disappointment. And I found it really interesting. So what really spurred this is I came across a arcade channel I was not familiar with. And now you guys may be familiar with these guys. I've never seen their channel before, but YouTube does what YouTube does, and it fed it to me. And I found their video, and of course it was about the end of Arcade1Up. And what was really interesting is these guys have a bunch of Arcade1Ups behind them, but I wouldn't call them like big Arcade1Up guys. But their discussion was really interesting. And so I wanted to play a clip from their show. And of course, I will drop a link. I will drop a link in the chat for their channel, which is Red Cow Arcade. So I will do that, and then let's take a quick look. Hopefully you guys can hear this.
I'm off the hook in COVID, so it was like people are kind of like, oh, I want to get a collection here, I want to do this, and so people probably got the designs they want. I got, you know, Street Fighter, I got Pac-Man, I made a Donkey Kong because they wouldn't do it.
I feel like every license that you could imaginably hope for that you would have wanted did get released.
Yes.
Your Galagas, your TMNTs, your X-Men's, your Simpsons, your Terminator 2s.
And then once you got your personal one that you wanted, there are definitely like Arcade1Up, like mega enthusiasts, the whales, so to say, who got like every single one filled like a, I don't know, a McMansion in the Midwest.
Stupid.
So you know, I found it really interesting. I found the conversation interesting. Of course, anytime somebody talks about my hobby, I usually find it interesting. But yeah, I thought it was really a good discussion. And I think they made a valid point that really the huge titles, the big titles, the ones that really get us fired up have mostly been released, right? It's hard to say of the titles unreleased, how many are those true AAA, like everybody would get hype and sell like crazy. And so I found their point very interesting. So definitely go check out that channel. I'm not familiar with it. I watched that one video. I was very entertained by that video. So check them out. Watch the video. They make a lot of good points. But that was kind of like, you know what? I find myself agreeing with a lot of what they're saying. Of course, I am in the Midwest, and I do have a whole basement full of these things in my McMansion, I guess. So that you know, guilty as charged. But it kind of resonated. And the other issue I have is, like, I'm a collector at heart, right? You guys watch the channel. I collect these 3/4 scales, the ones I really like, so I can recreate that arcade atmosphere in my home. That's a collector thing. I like having a lot of these, and I like the aesthetic and the way it looks and the way it makes me feel and the nostalgia around it. I like that stuff. You guys know I collect retro video games. I have a crap ton of retro games because I like the nostalgia. I like the quality and the play of old games where you could just pick them up and play and then put them down, or, you know, they cared more about delivering a quality game and a complete game than they did microtransactions or political nonsense. And so I collect retro games. I always really collected those my whole life. And I like toys, so I collect a lot of action figures, right? And so I have, of course, guilty as charged, a collector mindset. The stuff has been, I don't know, grilled into me through, you know, American capitalism. And like Pokemon, we got to catch them all. You know, these companies know how to tap into that dopamine hit in order to keep you excited and keep you buying more and more and more. And the home arcade companies seem to have forgotten how to do that. Like, they really tapped into it early on when they were releasing title after title. But when you stop and you slow way down, it becomes easier and easier to tune it out, right? To turn away and look at something else. Like, I was shared today a Facebook ad for a full up, really good condition, Bad Dudes original arcade. Can you guess what they're selling it for on Facebook? It's probably sold by now. The basically the price of a quarter arcades. It was like $350, and it looked like it was in super good condition. Now those are big. You got to move them. Like, I'm not going to buy it and bring it here, but I'm just saying, like, that money, if Basic Fun were to release that, it would be $600 and you could get a really good condition original. You know, we've heard these stories over and over, but when you're not putting out any product, you're not giving the fans, the collectors, that dopamine hit, you know, giving them something to spend their money on. They're going to turn somewhere else. And when they turn somewhere else, they will end up getting that same kind of enjoyment or close to it out of those other products. And now you've kind of lost that person, because now they're going to get invested in something else. So for what B. Kirby said, I think it makes a ton of sense that there may be one or two like really, really niche or really tug on the heartstrings titles that I may be like, oh yeah, I really, really want that one. But when I look around at the ones I have, there's not a lot left that is going to convince me to go out and spend $600 or $700 on it. You know, when I can take an extra 300 and change, you know what, 400, if you get to $1,100, right? You're in the Nova Blast range. And then for $60, you can throw on a knockoff Pandora box on it. You have access to all the games and a 26-inch screen. Again, that's the multicade concept. Don't confuse me. I really like, or don't take what I'm saying wrong. I like the replica kind of look. But you know, at the same time, I can play all the games. So then it's like, now am I really wanting to spend $600 or $700? And as I think about that, I think it was timely that, what was it, yesterday? It was either yesterday or early today. DMAC, I don't know. I assume you guys know who David McIntosh is. If you don't, DMAC from Arcade1Up. You know, you're not wrong, Jim the Pacers fan. The entire gaming industry is going through turbulent times as the market adjusts. You're not wrong, but they're still releasing stuff. And these companies really aren't. And the ones that are making missteps that should not have been made, you know, quite frankly. They could have called up half a dozen people that sit in these chats, you know, on every show and ask them, what do you think of this? And fixed the stuff before it ever went into full production. So I have to question what some of these companies are doing. And that's why I bring up DMAC, because DMAC, for you guys who don't know, launched a new podcast. When he left Arcade1Up, he started his own arcade PR firm. And he's been working with companies like Iconic Arcade, My Arcade, I think Basic Fun, but don't quote me on that. He's working with Wonderland. And so he launched his YouTube channel for his podcast, the Arcade PR podcast, within the last day or so. And I will drop that link in here because, you know, I actually found it very good. So I definitely recommend you guys check out his channel, subscribe. I mean, he's a true arcade insider. He's worked for AtGames. He's worked for Arcade1Up. And now he's working with bigger brands like My Arcade and others. So this is a guy that really has been in the inner workings, and he doesn't just casually know the players. He has close personal friendships with them. So when he sat down today or yesterday, because it's been exactly a full day, when he sat down to talk to Jerry Cummings, which you guys know is Think Up and the guy who originally came up with the idea for Arcade1Up, we talked about that ad nauseum here about the lawsuit days. He knows a lot more, right? He knows all the behind the scenes stories. But one thing I found really interesting is what Jerry thought about all of this, right? takes the covers off. And what did he really think about 3/4 scale arcades and us, quite frankly? This community, the home arcade community that's on YouTube and Reddit, what he let us know kind of behind, um, let us look behind the curtain. So let's take a quick look at that. Again, the full video is available over at the Arcade PR YouTube channel, link in the comments or the chat.
Sort of replicating or making these copies the best we could of the 80s games or the 90s games. And that wasn't me personally. I can tell you, I didn't follow that thought. I could get some people upset now listening to me. Oh, this guy was so influenced on Arcade1Up, and he didn't even like what we were doing. But I did not like what I was doing, because we were catering, or we were trying to design products to a very small group, versus I thought that the real group was the mass market out there, and that was about affordability, and the features didn't have to have all those features to get to that price point.
So I thought it was pretty eye-opening, right? I mean, it's something we kind of knew, but to hear him put it into words, right? That really, he doesn't really care about the collector market. Wasn't his thing. That was being driven by John D, not really him. And so it doesn't come as a surprise to me as a result of that some of the things we saw after John left at Arcade1Up went back towards the mass market stuff. They were less concerned with replicas and more some of the, removing features, cutting costs. It's not a surprise to me, knowing that the people that were behind the designs of Basic Fun came out of ThinkUp, that those were more in line with those other ones, like with the adapted. Yeah, we took the deluxe style because, if you watch DMAC's podcast, they talk about how they took ideas from what they saw people in this community doing. They saw people taking the art and extending it through the risers, so that, well, like, that makes sense. Let's just build it all into the the deluxe and the cabinet, things like that. So definitely go watch it. They reminisce about some of the good old days. They talk about some of Jerry and ThinkUp's big hits in the past, before and outside of Arcade1Up, and they talk obviously heavily a lot about what they're doing now. And I also want to give a big shout out to Jerry. He's a super nice guy. He's always been really nice to me. And they announced during that podcast that they signed a distribution and deal with Solutions to Go, which is huge. They have an in at all the major retailers where they actually, get products in these retailers like Walmart and Costco and others. So it's the same people Arcade1Up was using in their final year, and they've used them in the past. So it's really cool that he's with a distributor that has that ability. So, congrats to the Wonderland team and those folks. But I think it gives you an insight into even what Basic Fun is thinking. And kind of like, they're just not interested in making these collector editions of games. That's not what they're focused on. They want to hit just as big a sales as possible. And in my opinion, they're wrong that by cutting corners and doing some of these modernization things that Jerry talked about, that it appeals to more people. I don't think that's the case. I think if you look at any nostalgia-based product, and I don't think there's a toy company you can look at right now that is not knee-deep in nostalgia, whether that's Mattel with the Hasbro or the He-Man Masters of the Universe Origins line. They're the same designs as the original toys. They've just added some extra articulation. The packages look like the original toys. You go over to Hasbro and you look at G.I. Joe, the classified retro line. They're bigger, but they're the same designs-ish, little bit of updates. They use the same retro packaging because they understand the nostalgia is the wrapper. It is the packaging. It's not just the product, that the aesthetics, the visuals are all part of it. And, you know, you could go into some of the stuff they've done in the Star Wars Black series where they put them on the vintage style cards. You could just go into all these toys, whether it's Mask or whatever. They understand you can make some updates, modernize some things, but the nostalgia is all about the wrapping, the packaging, and getting very, very close to what that is. And I think if you look at Arcade1Up's biggest hits, it's the ones that were closest to the originals, the original looks, the original art, the original everything. And every time they stray away from that, I think it alienates people. I think they get less and less sales, right? They don't get more. They grew on the back of adapting to what collectors wanted. And I think it's a mistake for these companies to move away from that and certainly not deliver on time. Now, I think what you've seen is these companies have, as they've released nothing that's excited people, they are excited few people. I don't want to say there's nothing that's been exciting in the last 3+ years. We're going into year 4 now. That I think they've turned into this thought process that, and I don't want to say they have, right? Because DMAC is a PR firm. His job is to promote the companies and brands he works with. So there's no qualms about what's happening on that channel. But it's very interesting. But if you're a retailer that's invested heavily in the products of these companies, whether it's Basic Fun or Iconic, you have a vested interest, even if they're falling down, right? Even if they've made mistakes, is trying to push back against some of the unbiased reviews and discussions that were happening. And so, you know, one of those companies went out and created their own show. And if I was that company, this is not criticism of that show in any way. If I was that company and I was in the same spot where I'd invested all kinds of money into a company that has yet to deliver anything, and another company whose big line had all this promise missed the mark, and I'm sitting on all this product, and the reviews are all the issues that I'm having, or all the news coverage is how another shipping or another shipping date has been delayed, and it's just all negative over and over. You know, you have a vested interest, so it makes sense. You're going to go out and create a show and try to spin it and say, no, these things are all great, and this is why, you know, they're super great. So you know, so again, if I was in that position, I'd probably want to do the same thing. But you know, it's just the state of where things are. I think the reality is that things have not been impressive. I don't know how many more years we can keep sitting here hoping lightning strikes and something happens, or being teased by products that absolutely excite us and then never ship. And I just don't know how long before we're all pivoting. And when I say we, I mean all of us, like not YouTubers, not just as consumers, before our attention is swiped up into the next fad. I just don't think there's much time left to reignite those fires. And it's not just us you got to convince. You have to have the sales from us to convince the retailers that they should bring you back in their stores, or bring you into the stores and take up all the valuable real estate with these products. And I just don't know how they do it when the biggest titles, the bigs of the bigs, have been released and already sold millions. But we'll see. I mean, we'll just have to see, I guess. I mean, I really just don't know. Burnt Orange Arcade says, can Iconic make money with that model? We will see. So to Iconic's credit, like, man, they gave a huge discount. So, you know, for those people who held on to that pre-order, that giant discount, I think what they take it down to 500 or whatever it is, 550, 500, somewhere in there. That's a great deal. It's a huge cab. It's going to have a bunch of games on it. If they fulfill their promises, you're going to have some sort of storefront, whether you download free additional games or you pay for them, you'll be able to add more games. I think it's a good idea. I just couldn't keep waiting and hoping it was going to come. KI Pro showed them Jerry was right and John D was wrong. So again, I'd go back. Um, I don't think you're wrong when you talk about that. I think the KI Pro was the wrong cabinet to do it on. Like, all due respect to KI fans, it's not Street Fighter. It's not Mortal Kombat. I mean, Mortal Kombat's the biggest selling fighting franchise of all time. Like, it dwarfs Street Fighter, and Street Fighter's huge. So, like, had they done the Pro as a Mortal Kombat or as a Street Fighter, I think we'd be having a different conversation today. And of course, we've all talked ad nauseum about how they fumbled the announcement, dropping the 3/4 scale and announcing the Pro all at the same time. Just finished the Black Phone. Excellent. I assume the movie. Was it the sequel? Was it the original? And did you watch it in VR? Because you get that extra VR experience if you watch the Black Phone in VR. So it's pretty interesting to me. And Dave Deming says the Arcade1Up had done a Street Fighter Pro cab first, then a lot would be different. However, I love my KI Pro. Exactly. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the KI Pro. People that got it like it. It was a huge price point, $1,000. I think, quite frankly, in my opinion, you can't go above $500. $499, not even $500. It's got to be $499 or less. There have been few cabs that went over it. Most took a really long time to sell through, even Star Wars, right? So when you go above $499, it's got to be special. And this is the problem that Basic Fun had coming out. And again, don't blame them. We had the tariff thing, but coming out at $599 was a risk, huge risk, especially with less feature. But at the time, I thought it was a wise decision because, when you launch a product, you come out at a higher price, you can always go lower, but you can never go higher. But that was when I thought it was going to come out rock solid because they had the people working with them who have done this stuff before. They saw the mistakes Arcade1Up made. They knew what people wanted. And so to see them make the same mistakes was just, and new mistakes was just so frustrating. They did some things better. It's not all negative, right? But it's frustrating. Nice. The original was very fun. Guys always crying about the high prices. I want stuff for $100 are so annoying and unrealistic. Absolutely. You're not going to get it for that. That's part of the reason why Arcade1Up is not here with us today, right? But the reality is it happened, right? I can look at my arcade over there and I can list off the ones I got at retail for under $200 or direct from Arcade1Up for under $200. Like most of mine, I didn't pay anywhere near retail for. I think 4 cabs I bought retail. Every other one was on some blowout or clearance deal or some big Black Friday sale, or I bought it maybe secondhand. That's a problem Arcade1Up had to fight too. And it's the same thing Basic Fun has to fight. And it's just going to be a big challenge. And as food prices go higher, healthcare costs go higher, RAM prices go higher, it's just going to get more and more and more expensive. You can always go higher price. Xbox, PS5, Switch. Not sure what you mean by that, Video Game Vegas. Obviously, those are very much the same price points as. Oh, I get you. I get you. You're saying because you can you introduce a product, you can't really go higher. What it's in general. Those are kind of closed systems. But ask Xbox how well raising the prices have done for them, because you can't even find them in stores anymore. They don't really make them. My projected iconic release schedule: Street Fighter Alpha 2 arriving March, Double Dragon August, Cab 3 Qbert arriving November. First iconic racer will be announced at CES 2027. There you go. And I assume you mean predicted. Yeah, so I don't know. Like at this point, I was super hyped for Double Dragon. I was already hyped for Street Fighter Alpha 2. Now I can't find myself to get excited about any of them. I feel like there are too many. I just to borrow from my friends over in Missouri, right? You're gonna have to show me before I'm getting hyped about any of this crap again, right? Like I like this stuff. I enjoy the stuff. I could get excited really easy if somebody releases something good. That's why I'm finding, um, I'm finding more excitement from some of these other things of companies that are doing stuff. And I know there's been a lot of criticisms of Quarter Arcade because they've sent out a lot of units to a lot of YouTubers, but I'm glad they did because quite frankly, I had it in my head having purchased several New Wave toys in the past. There's like, hey, I like the New Wave toys scale. I think it works well with action figures for posing, and those Quarter Arcades just seem to be huge. And I have to obviously disclose that they sent me a couple for free for review purposes. Their videos are on this channel, Lunar Lander and TMNT. But after getting the TMNT and seeing it in person and playing it in person, I was like, these are actually really cool. And I can play them right on the cabinet. It doesn't feel cramped. It's turn it on, quick game of the game. I have the look of the cab, the feel of the cab. It's large enough to play on, but not so large you can't really store it anywhere. I have all these bookcases for my retro games. They fit right on there. So I was really impressed. So then I went out and bought more. And I know other people have followed the same story. For me, it really took getting my hands on one of these to really see how good they were. And it's scratching that same kind of itch for me. So I can see myself now as I look at this going, man, for the nostalgia feels and the looks, something like Quarter Arcades is great. And then when I want to play it in a really comfortable full setting, my Nova Blast, or I have my X Arcade with the Chris Cool mod drive on it, right? Like I can play those other games on those and have a much more comfortable, when I say comfortable, much more normal experience, like full big screen, right? Like I have my X Arcade and that multi-cade PC on a how big is that thing? 76-inch screen, I think. A huge giant screen. Like I can't stand far enough away from it. So, you have to get really far away so that you can actually play arcade games on it in a fun way. Or I've got the Nova Blast, and I really love playing the Nova Blast. Like I had never played a candy cab for the Nova Blast, and once I sat down at it several years ago when I got to play the prototype, I was like, this is actually a ton of fun playing it this way, and I really liked it. So I don't know where I'm at anymore. Like if they come out with something that truly excites me, I'll probably be on board. But I don't see it coming. I just don't. I don't have any faith, and they're going to have to show me at this stage. That's where I'm at. So it's not meant to be negative. It's really more about the business side of it. I think that these companies, the more they delay, the longer they take, the more mistakes they make, the more opportunity they're giving people to leave. And I know it's not all their fault. And I would caution them on how they communicate with the world, because you got to be careful about who's representing you. I think those are challenges they need to overcome or think about. That's why I like what DMAC's doing. I think that's smart. He's not there to directly sell you anything. He's there to promote these companies, but I think in a at least more understandable way. He's a PR guy. His job is PR. But I give credit to all these people coming out, making their shows, doing their stuff. These companies trying to sell their product. They got to do what they got to do. But the easiest thing is to just make the stuff people want in a quality people want at a reasonable price. right? You got to make money, but you should deliver what consumers actually want. Because if you make something and you cut all the corners and nobody wants it, you're not going to sell it anyway. So it doesn't really matter, does it? Socktail says, but James, don't you have millions to spend on these things? Yes. Spend the kids' futures on them. Debbie Downer, yes. So your arcade room is awesome, Bert Orange. I'll have to check that out. I went from 2 quarter arcades to 6, actually 7, including the 7-Up machine over the last month and a half. Yeah, you have to admit they had one hell of a sale over the holidays, didn't they? The one I really want to get my hands on is Space Invaders. I really kind of always wanted that one since they announced it, because I really like when that they're taking chances doing things that won't be really released in the kind of original arcade format. That was kind of the theme of the show last week. Like I had a buddy that had an original lunar lander. It was the late 90s, early 2000s. He paid $2,000 for it back then. So you're talking 25 plus years ago. And it was super rare then. But that thing was minty as all get out. Super cool. And so, I never experienced Lunar Lander in the arcade when I was a kid. That was before I was really old enough to do arcades, and they were all gone by then because they were rare to begin with. But, getting to play the right way, the real way, I fell in love with that game. The game is awesome, but it's never been great in the ways we can play it. Whether it's emulation or some of these Arcade1Up machines, it's just never captured the real feeling of playing it, which really requires the thruster and the movement. And man, it really is a good feeling playing it on the on the quarter arcades. So if you're a fan of the game, it's not an inexpensive collector toy. It's not. It's pricey. But it's good. If you're a fan of it, it's really good. Like to me, it's been the only thing the closest thing to playing the original that I've seen released that I've had a chance to play. But anyway, I put up a bunch of shelves to put my New Wave toys up in my arcade. Yep, I have a whole row of New Wave toys, and they're covered with gremlins. Thank goodness for quarter arcades and New Wave toys, because that's the only way I can fit more machines in my home arcade. Yep. That's the other thing, right? You got to have space, and quarter arcades and New Wave toys allow you to mass a lot in a small footprint. But we want the big feel of the arcade too, right? Appreciate that on the reviews. I think I'll have money to stay in this hobby. $600 to $1,000 is the future pricing. Yeah, which is insane, right? Like if I'm gonna spend $1,000 plus on something, and by the way, I just glossed over AtGames problems. We've beat that up at nauseum, right? But AtGames obviously is in there as a company that's been super disappointing. They dropped that 4KP. It was going to be awesome, and then it kind of just fizzled. And so it's a great product, but you can't really buy it if you want one. And then they just keep having issues where it's either down all week, or the store doesn't work, or now you can't even buy them online. You have to use the store. So my 4KP hasn't been turned on in probably 4 months at this point. It's a doorstop. I need to just sell it and get rid of it. It's just been eclipsed by better things like the Zen Studios FXVR. Fantastic experience. And with AtGames just continually misstepping and having issues, like it's just not driving any enjoyment there either. So it's frustrating for me anyway. So let's see. Jim says, I thought A1Up did a good job bringing their brand value up. Look, like I said, they had a couple good ones in my opinion in the last 3+ years. They did Time Crisis, which was a challenge. They did it. I think they largely accomplished it. I have issues with how they designed the guns myself. Like it was an unnatural position where they put the camera, and so it is what it is. But it's a good cab. The claw machine, like I know that's controversial or divisive, but I think that was a genius move. Uh, for It's not nostalgic, it's not a recreation, but the Pac-Man Neon they did this year was actually really cool under black light and in a in a cool blacklit arcade. It was really cool looking. So if they could put that on the floor and demo it to people that way, I think that would have been a huge hit for them. But it is what it is. 349 Peasant, 549 Deluxe feels about right. I would say as long as the Deluxe is truly deluxe, we want those features, right? We want online play. We want coin doors. And I'm going to say I don't really care about coin doors as much as a lot of people, but I at least think they need to be there for a look. I'd say if you're going to put it on there, you should make it functional. And I don't mean like really put coins in it, but maybe that's how you credit up or something. Otherwise, it's just a hunk of plastic on the front, but at least it makes it look more real. So I'd rather have it than not have it. Because without it, it just seems like weird, wasted space. Ram Jam. We did that one already. Let's see. Gamer Fridge doesn't have millions to spend on these things. I have kids and grandkids who want money too. And there you go. Let's see. James, the only reason I'm going to root for the Broncos this weekend is because it would make you a little happy. Oh, I would love for you to root for the Broncos. I know I will be. They certainly got a tough game coming up. They're all going to be tough from here on out, right? But quite frankly, the Bills are who I wanted to play. Of who made the playoffs, I knew the Steelers weren't going anywhere. So of the teams that were left, I wanted to play them, right? The Chargers were a rivalry, so that's always a tight game. And our last several games with them have always come down to the very end. Whether they've been high scoring or low scoring, they always come down to the very end. And that's what happens when you play rivals. So wasn't really looking forward to going against them, though they were my second choice. The Jaguars are on fire. They're the only team that really beat the Broncos all year. Like they took it to us. That first game against the Colts that we lost, we didn't really lose that. A bullshit ref call who imagined a call like gave them an extra field goal attempt after they missed one, which made it a guarantee that they would make it because it was a bullshit call that just never happened. Then in the Chargers game, our own mistakes, drop touchdown, missed field goal, followed by like multiple pass interference to just move the Chargers right into field goal range at 0 seconds. That's why we lost that game. So really, the team that really beat us was Jaguars. So I didn't really want to play the Jaguars just yet. We took it to Houston when we played them, but that's because CJ Stroud got hurt early in the game. If he had been there the whole game, how would that have turned out? I don't know. But so of those teams, the most beatable, in my opinion, is the Bills. Like they just have not played well this season. They have bouts of being good, but they haven't been great. And they're hurt. They've got a lot of wide receivers out. So as I look at our defense and stacking up against that offense, it all comes down to whether Bo Nix can actually be consistent or not. So we'll find out. Anyway, enough football talk. Go Broncos. # Broncos country. Let's see here. Ask any 10 gamers what they want, and you'll probably get 10 different answers. But I do agree that at its most basic, we all want good, fun, quality products. That's absolutely right. I have quarter arcade Space Invaders and 2, and they are worth it. That's awesome. Which Space Invader? So for me, it's the OG. I want the original. Um, but I would take either one. But the one that I think draws my attention the most is the original. But I really want, because again, I haven't seen it in person. I want to see how they accomplished the effect, which we know they did. So I think that would be super cool. Like, obviously, Space Invaders, classic arcade or classic game, especially if you were a 2600 owner as a kid. It's just a classic, simple space game. But the way it was done, projected onto the background, so that you had some color when there was no color. Like, it's just a cool concept to be able to recreate like that when multicades and uh, even like the Arcade1Up stuff. They're never going to go that mile and do that. So that's one I'd really like to own. So as I look at the stuff that Quarter Arcades is doing and New Wave Toys, the ones I'm interested in are the ones that are doing things that are never going to be recreated in that space. So the Battle Zone is super exciting to me because that's never going to get redone right, except in that smaller form factor. I like what I heard from the Iconic interview today. They seem to want to try to be our niche market producer. I hope we all support them because they are our only hope. I had a chance to meet, I don't know why I'm going to draw a blank on his name. 2 seconds. Peter. That's what I wanted to say, but I did. So I met Peter and his wife when I was at CES. Really nice guy. They were definitely excited, but it's not their only thing, right? They sell a bunch of other electronics and stuff. They had DJ equipment there. They had some other prototype things they were working on. And I believe he does want it to be a big success. He made a major investment in it. With what we've heard about pre-sales, I think they said a couple hundred of the Street Fighter 2 have pre-sold. Couple hundred? Like, I hope that's wrong. I hope that what was stated is wrong, because if that's all they've sold, I'm not so optimistic that we'll ever get a second cab. Because I imagine they've got to sell at least 3,000 of these, and if not 3,000 of both designs. Maybe they can get by with a little less, but I think they really counting on selling at minimum 3,000 of these. And if you've only sold a total of couple hundred, I don't want to say 200 because it's probably more than that, but it's a couple hundred. That's scary to me, because I think that bodes like KI Pro numbers. They only made 500 of those, and it took 3 years to sell through them. That's not going to end up with like 3 a year. We're not going to get 3 different cabs, 6 different designs, if they're only selling a few hundred a year. Like, they've got to blow through them at high rates of speed for us to continue to get a lot of them. That's my opinion. Jason says he loves Numbskull Space Invaders. He has the original one. Chris wanted Space Invaders, but suffered price shock until we got the sales. Yep. I wish I had been paying closer attention when the sales happened. I would have definitely picked one up. Next one I'll snag is likely Polybius. I think that was just a charger, right? It would be nice if it actually had the fake game in it too. But let's see. If I had millions to spend, I wouldn't be worrying about 3/4 scale arcades. Yeah, if I had millions, I'd have a storefront and I'd just buy my arcades, put them in there, and just make money and let people walk in and play them. And then I could go in there and hang out and play them whenever I wanted. But if that was my retirement, I definitely wouldn't be spending that on arcades. But hey, that's just me. This year is going to be amazing with all the New Wave toys, 1/4, the FU, Alice. All is going to be an amazing year. I can't wait. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. It's been, well over a year since New Wave Toys has shipped a product, aside from the one to retail. Lots of reasons behind it. Not a direct criticism. But until we see these things actually ship, I got to see it. FU is exciting. If you haven't bought it yet, you're probably not going to get a chance to buy it. I don't think. I hope so. I hope there's some extras, but I don't think like they've produced well over what they've sold. I think they targeted right around what they sold. So hopefully there's enough interest. Maybe they go back to that well, but it's probably going to be more expensive because of all the price increases. So it's exciting for the people that definitely bought that for sure, especially the stuff Glenn's doing with all the new decks he's coming up with, and it's going to be super cool. But the rest of the stuff we'll have to wait and see. I know Quarter Arcades, you mentioned them doing some cool stuff on the horizon. I just want X-Men re-released. Yeah, it would be cool if they did the 6-player like we saw. AtGames PK'd up. Mike Hawkhurt's Pac-Man Neon had a really nice look in person. Very cool. I kept an AOP for AtGames Original. So I still have both the original HD and the 4KP, but I just can't bring myself to see it. Play them. Oh Lord, don't get me started on football. So I'm way behind in chat. Yeah, Peter Vanderbosch. Das ist his Name. Sounds like the 4KP or Pro numbers. Yep. The new Polybius will only have 5 ports. Custom cab FU. Yeah, G.I. Joe, obviously. That to me is the stuff that has been most interesting, is the stuff Glenn made, the stuff G.I. Joel made, stuff made. Like, who couldn't get fired up about that? The super sprint they came up with. It was out of my price range, but goddamn, somebody did an actual recreation. The stuff Unico is talking about and the stuff they've already done is interesting to me. I really like the Raiden look. Raiden isn't a huge like AAA brand. It's popular among shoot 'em up fans for sure, but so it's not a huge title, but I think it looks super cool. But talking about doing the bigger like arcade versions of like the Big Red and some of these other things, I think that would be really cool. I think there's a market for a company to make true cab recreations for all these other companies, like a business to business type thing, which would also be business to prosumers or whatever, however you want to call it, where they could make the original cabs with their monitor, the original shaped cabs with their monitors, with the right deck style, meaning the holes and things in the right places, the controls, all of that with their hardware in there, to where all you had to do was plug in the JAMA board or whichever board for the arcade style it is, and create these recreations where these arcade companies and restaurants or whoever who wants to have some of these vintage arcades in there can drop in the original boards or even the Pandoras, slap custom aftermarket side art and marquee on it, and have a recreation of the original cab in there. I mean, Lord knows, like, a lot of these original cabs are in horrid condition. And so if you want to go get them and put them in your for-profit arcade, you're either paying a ton over the top for an already restored one, or you have to restore them themselves, like some of these YouTube channel arcades. And maybe you don't have time, maybe you don't have the expertise. So I think there is definitely a market for a company to remake some of these key styles, like to do a Konami beat 'em up style that you can just slap on the different art as the purchaser, or to do the Namco style or the HS styles or the Midway style. Like, I think there truly is a market for that. And since they already make the monitors and they make those controls and the hardware, man, just make the shell with the guts, sell it like you are the Nova Blast. Nova Blast is great candy cab replacement or adjustment. Do wood regular arcades with the same guts and sell them. I think you'd have a ton of people buying arcade boards and throwing them in those and getting the stickers and stuff. But anyway, so we can beat a dead horse for an hour, but you know, that's how I'm feeling about home arcade. I'm very much losing my hype. It doesn't mean I don't like it. I still, like I said, I still play the crap. I'm still really like playing these and doing content on about them and talking about them and playing them. I'm losing the desire and the excitement of the new stuff being released by these companies. They're just not, I'm just tired of being disappointed by them. And so, for me, until they prove that they're going to do something amazing, I'm going to focus on the stuff, that I can play and that I can enjoy. And it is, I don't know what the right word is, but I'm going to focus on the stuff I can have fun and really do. And maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't. There's plenty of other stuff that does get me hyped. Whether it's, man, we're coming up on this is the 40th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda. Super excited about that. You guys know it's the 30th anniversary of Resident Evil. Super excited for that. There's just so many iconic, like NES, man, Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Kid Icarus, like all these games are in their 40th anniversary. You talk about movies, 40th anniversary of Top Gun, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, of Big Trouble in Little China, like so many massive nostalgic movies, everything. Like there's so much this year looking back to talk about, to get excited about, to look at over time. Like that's the stuff that's getting me excited right now and wanting to talk about. And so that's, partly what I'm going to be doing until one of these companies can actually prove they're going to release something and get us excited again. Yeah, they better give us a 40th anniversary Zelda. Like, can you imagine? Like, I don't think they'd ever do it, but I would love if they did a true remaster of The Legend of Zelda. Like, what if they gave it that Mario 3D kind of look and really updated that game into a modern 2D, 3D look like Square Enix has done, and then throw in a bunch of other features and stuff. Dude, like I could not throw my money at the screen fast enough. But yeah, 50th anniversary of Rocky. Yeah, next year, don't even get me started. 50th anniversary of Star Wars. That's going to be the year of Star Wars, especially if Kathleen Kennedy is gone. Yeah, imagine widescreen, a choice of 8-bit music or full orchestra. Dude, there's so many things they could do for Zelda, which to me is my most favorite game of all time. But keep beating it. He ain't dead. Nope, the horses ain't dead. In fact, they're going to win on Saturday. So that's all I got. I won't keep you here. I hear there's a new walkabout course that came out today that people have been playing. So hopefully I can get into one of those. Until then, I love what Atari has been doing. Yeah, the re-release of Atari stuff that I wish Nintendo would do that. Hell, I wish Sega would do that. But neither one of these companies seem interested in that. But that's why I support Atari doing that. I typically buy the stuff, I have loads of them sitting there because I want to show that if you actually re-released an NES, a modern NES, and you still made games for the NES, people would still buy them. Like, there's a whole market of people still making modern NES games. But can you imagine if Nintendo did it? Would you guys buy Super Mario Brothers 4? Would you buy Legend of Zelda 3? Like, there's opportunity to bring some of those classic franchises in the ways we played them back then, only even better because people have learned so much more about coding for those platforms that the quality would be improved. They know modern gameplay styles, they would be improved. Like, you could do some amazing stuff on those classic systems. And it's not just all kind of like a boomer thing, right? Like kids are playing those systems because they understand the quality of that. Walk into any retro video game store, you are going to find, and when I say kids, I mean like 20-year-olds, not like 10-year-olds. But when you walk into those stores and see who's buying the different cartridge-based systems, it's a lot of younger people because they want to play those same games. They understand the history of the IPs they love. And so I think it's exciting, and I wish these companies would embrace it more. But all righty. So you know what we do. I want to thank everybody for joining us, for hanging out, for talking about The Thrill Is Gone. And I hope the thrill comes back. Almost quoted somebody else, but I'm not going to do that. But until next time, have fun.